All the work for front seats back there.
We're going to go ahead and get started with the regular meeting. Littleton City Council today, July 2nd. Roll call.
Mayor Brinkman.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Stallman.
Here.
Councilmember Beckman.
Here.
Councilmember Cernanik.
Here.
Councilmember Cole.
Here.
Councilmember Taylor.
Present.
Councilmember Valdez.
Present.
Please rise for the pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have a change to the agenda. We are deleting item 7A. Are there any others? Jim?
Yes, I'd like to, under general business, talk about an additional charter amendment for the election in November.
Okay. We will add that under general business. Any other changes? Okay. Everybody okay with that? Then we'll approve that as is with those two adjustments. The minutes, approval of the minutes from the study session of May 6, 2013. Any changes?
I think I did.
Okay.
But a couple.
Jerry?
Good job on those minutes. I hope you. Let's see, and this was in our program here. It's page 6. And I'm sorry I didn't get these to you earlier, but they're all minor stuff, of course. I think that's a regular meeting, but on the top left it does say study session. And on page, let's see, did you catch that, Wendy? I'm sorry.
You're on May 6th, correct?
Yes.
That's a study session.
I'm sorry. No, I'm not. I jumped ahead. I went right to.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Oh, so you're not on
I have
it?
nothing on that one.
Okay. Anybody have anything on May 6th? Okay, those are approved as submitted. May 7th.
May I? Hey, on May 7th, top left, it says study session. I think it's a regular meeting. Cool.
Okay.
All right. Also, let's see, on page 7 on our computer here, which is page 2. No, that's not a change. Sorry. Oh, on page 17, line 435, 436, I think that's repeated. It's repeated again a couple of lines later on 440.
What minutes are you on, Jerry?
This is May 7.
Lines what?
It's on 435 and 436, lines 435, 436.
They don't go into three-digit numbers in that minutes.
On May 7?
Yes, they do on May 7th.
Yeah, they do.
Here we go, 435. Where City Council as a whole starts out, it's at the bottom of that page, page 12, and then when you go to page 13, it starts out again, same thing.
Okay, you're on page 12?
Yes,
Okay.
435, and then you can see it down on 440, it's the same thing.
That was caught by one of the other council members that
Oh, good.
put
Yeah,
it. I
excellent.
crossed that out.
All right, and then let's see, okay, that's it for that one. Thank you.
Okay. Any other changes to that? Okay, those were approved with the change. Study session on May 14th. Any changes to those minutes? Jerry?
Yeah, I do have something. On, let's see, again, what page? This would be minutes page 2. On line 31, where it says, Council Member Valdez said he did not understand. What I said was that I asked him how he arrived at his numbers and that his formula was flawed. After he explained it, I said his formula was flawed, and indeed it was. Okay, so there's that. And also page... Oh, that's it for that one. Thank you.
Okay. Any other changes to that? Okay. The minutes of May 14th are approved with the change. 4D, the minutes from the regular session on May 21st. Any changes?
Yes.
Jerry?
Okay. On page 3, I believe it's line 105. The last sentence says, Councilman Valdez attended the DU game. I watched the DU game. It was in Indiana, so I didn't get a chance to go there. And I think I have more. That's it for that one.
Okay. Any other changes to 21? Okay. With that change, then those are approved. The minutes from May 28th, study session. Jerry?
It just happens to be. I noticed on those minutes there were no attendance records or roll call. And on the others, though, I don't know if that's something that we normally do, but I didn't see it in there. Also, we're on 28th. Is that what we're on? Yeah, on the 28th. Yeah, right. Cool. Then I do have one other item, which is line, wait. No, I think that's fine. Oh, yes, it is. I'm sorry, on line 83 and 84, I did not say that I would like to see a raise in fees, but I did say I'm not opposed to increased fees based, and the rest of it is correct. Also, that is it for that.
Okay. Any other changes? Okay. Those minutes are approved with the change.
Minutes, sir.
And then the minutes from the regular meeting of June 4th. Any changes there? Jerry?
Yes. Let's see, that is a regular meeting, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, because again, on the top left, Wendy, it does say study session. And also line 57, which is page 3, line 57, Councilmember Valdez invited. Instead of invited, I mentioned the exotic sports car show.
Okay.
And
It wasn't like the internet, you invented it.
I didn't invent it. That is it. Thank you.
Any other changes? Okay, the minutes of the June 4th regular meeting are approved as amended. And the minutes from the June 11th special meeting, any changes? Seeing none, those are approved. Okay. We had a lot of those. We had canceled a meeting due to a out-of-town trip by council. They kind of stacked up. I do want to let everybody know this evening that we will not be hearing a public hearing on the Broadstone rezoning, that is scheduled for August 6th.
Yet to be
due to, pardon me?
There is a motion, or there may be a motion to schedule it, but it's not really scheduled there yet.
Okay, it's on the agenda to schedule to August 6th, which is going to happen. Okay, so comments and reports, City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I've been with you guys for a lot of the items, so I assume that you will talk about a fair amount, and I'll jump in if there's other things as well. But I wanted to let you know, because of the holiday, we anticipate having the packet out to you by tomorrow afternoon. A couple things that you may not be aware of. We had a debrief on the block party with the downtown merchants to work on improved communication and process. Went well. Councilmember Taylor joined us for that discussion. And along those lines, we're continuing to work. I think everyone's aware that there's going to be a criterium downtown as the front end of the Western Welcome Week, so we're working with those folks to make that a success. It's a 0.8-mile route downtown, and it will be, again, part of the kickoff on the Western Welcome Week and tied into that. Let's see, we are one of 12 entities that's continuing to work with CML on Senate Bill 25. That's the collective bargaining one, so we are a player in that. We're not a lead in that because we already exceed the meet and confer with our association contract, but we are continuing to follow and participate in that conversation. And then lastly, wanted to let you know that Public Works Director Bloston and others have been continuing to look into the Kettering Lake filling in opportunities. And Councilman Stallman, I think it had a homeowners association meeting and came up with some additional ideas and asked that we look into that. So we're working with South Suburban, Denver Water, and our water attorneys to look at some different options and see if there's a way that we can get some water into that. So if there's any short-term report, we hope to bring that forward next Tuesday when the water attorneys are here, and if not, we'll just update you as appropriate.
Yeah, just a clarification. The information I got was actually from former city manager Borger, who had pulled some stuff that he had visibility to and shared it. And so I'm passing along because Jerry was at the homeowners association meeting too.
As well as Councilman Valdez.
Yeah.
Michael, the Senate Bill 25, the 12 entities, are they just municipalities, or they include the special fire districts as well?
Right now, it's not the special fire districts because they are statutory, and so what CML is focusing on is the municipalities on a home rule basis and arguing it on home rule.
But it does affect them.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
I just didn't want that concept that it did not affect.
No, it affects statutory to almost a greater degree because they do not have the ability to challenge it. It's the home rule municipalities that have an opportunity to challenge it. And really there are at least 3 jurisdictions, I believe it's Westminster, Grand Junction, and Colorado Springs, that have already gone to the voters previously, and the voters have turned down unions on more than one occasion. So those are the jurisdictions. One of those 3 may be who leads this charge. But no, it affects anyone with greater than 25 paid firefighters under that definition. Yep.
Right.
So good clarification. Thank you. That's all, Mayor.
Thank you. I want to, before we start with council reports, I want to welcome our city attorney, Ken Feldman, with the firm Kissinger Feldman. So we are pleased to have you here. Okay, we'll go ahead and start with our council reports, and we'll start with Peggy.
Well, geez. Biggest thing, at least for me, is the CML, attending the CML annual conference. That was very, very worthwhile. I emailed to quite a few people my report on things that I attended. If you did not receive it and would like it, please let me know and I'll email it to you. Yesterday, I attended the presentation at Health One on, what is it? There's a fundraiser presentation.
Hands for Baby James.
Hands for Baby Jameson. Phil and I were both there. An incredibly inspiring presentation by a man who's he's a double amputee and also lost part of his foot, and he's biking across country, bicycling across country on a bicycle he's specially adapted to bike to raise money, but very, very inspirational. So if you would like to contribute to that, you can contact Health One or me, and we can give you information on how to contribute. And then I participated along with the mayor and a few other people for the Share the Path about 10 days ago. Really a nice event, although most people just went blowing past faster than we could get them to share. But anyway, I think the mayor has thoughts about doing more of these events. Anyway, thank you.
Jim?
Yes, I've got a number of things I'd like to talk about. One is have an ordinance created that would increase our court fines from the maximum of $1,000 we have now up to what the state law allows. New legislation allows it to go up to $2,650 and give the judge that discretion, which I think will require an ordinance to do. Number 2 is scheduling a study session to discuss what we want to do in our marijuana rules now that the state has issued theirs, and in that we need to address marijuana clubs. Number 3, the danger about going to CML is that you come back with all these ideas. Golden had an asset management of their streets that they had put together, and we may want to ask Charlie to take a look at that. We need a good assessment of our streets and see if that's something that we could replicate. There's no sense of us reinventing that wheel. Fort Collins had what they called a complete streets fund, which was a small tax increase that put in bicyclist and pedestrian walkways. It improved bridges in the community. It redid streets, and mostly it paid for their bus transportation system internally. And as you know, we've had that discussion about that. So looking at something like that may be of benefit to Littleton citizens. And lastly, from CML, would like for us to investigate becoming a solar-friendly community. And I believe Jim Thielen has had some conversations with the solar group that's doing this and might like to pursue that. I think it has some great advantages. That was one of the 2 workshops that I did moderate at the CML conference. Budget considerations for 2014. I'd like in 2014 to have a study done to relocate fire station number 11. And we'd use this space for city needs, which the city staff can determine what those needs would be and do it before the budget gets approved. Secondly, I'd like to propose that we eliminate the right turn off of westbound Main to northbound Prince and create a new sidewalk there with the traffic light configuration that we've got going now, where there is no Barnes dance anymore, will lend itself to eliminating that right turn. With that, you can expand the sidewalk and allow sidewalk cafes to go in there, because the parking would just be moved out to be in line with the rest of that street. And there are innovative ways to do expansion of sidewalks. It does not have to be concrete. There are cities who put them in wood with railings, specifically as a outside eating area. Wheat Ridge being one, and I think Lafayette or Longmont or one of those L towns. Louisville. One of those L towns up there had done that as well. So, again, we don't have to invent the wheel. We can see what others have done. Okay. I'd also like a traffic count and speeds on Main Street. I have long advocated that the speeds on Main Street should be 20 miles an hour. Right now they're 25. The last study that was given to me, which was a number of years ago, the average speeds on Main Street was over 30 miles an hour. Reducing it to 20 may reduce those average speeds down to 25. With new electric speed signs on the west end of the bridge stating it's 20 miles an hour, I think would be a big help as we get more and more pedestrians walking across Main Street, going from one side to the other to go to restaurants or go shopping. We need to have slower speeds on Main Street. I also would like to have an investigation of moving to angle parking on Main Street. Reverse every other block. Grand Junction does this. It's proved quite successful. You probably can get more parking on Main Street than what we have now with parallel parking. But take a look at doing something innovative about Main Street. That also would tend to slow speeds down too, I'll tell you. And then I received a letter that because my zip code is 80123. Everybody thinks I live in Jefferson County. But I did receive a request from the Jeffco Action Center for some additional funding, and I'll hand that letter to Michael. It probably needs to go into our request for budget consideration. And that's it.
Okay, Bruce?
Yeah, I will echo Councilmember Taylor. I did have an opportunity to happen to be in downtown Louisville a week or so ago, and they've done some very nice things with wooden sidewalk extensions that have really made the downtown area up there walkable and user-friendly. So just an example to go look at. One thing Peggy didn't mention regarding CML was congratulations to Mayor Brinkman on her election to the CML board, and by medium city peers on CML, and then also congratulations to Councilmember Taylor, who has fulfilled his term on the same board, is now going off. So well done. Attended the fire partner meeting on the 17th of June, and the issues discussed included the ongoing work with regard to full transport, the West Metro Mutual Aid agreement, the blue card training that it's called Advanced Incident Training and Resource Management, that a lot of the senior people are participating in as far as Littleton Fire and Rescue is concerned. And then a discussion of staffing and overtime issues that are paramount as well to ongoing cost control. So the fire partners were well represented, as well as the city at that particular meeting. I thought the boards and commissions dinner came out very well. It was a lot of fun for everybody. And as was the Friends of the Library and Museum 50th anniversary annual meeting that Council members Cole and Taylor also attended last Friday. It's always fun to see a lot of the members of the Friends of the Library and Museum come in, and they had slideshows going with a lot of pictures from prior meetings. The ones that I always get a kick out of are the old regatta pictures on Kettering Lake that unfortunately we don't do that anymore. Frankly, this year we can't, but if we could, they were a lot of fun back in the day. A lot of people remember those. Last was the Health South dedication of the new facility, and I assume, Phil, you will chime in on that a little bit further. So that's it.
Okay, thank you. Jerry?
Cool, thank you. All right. Back June 4th, when I did mention the exotic car show that was held at Arapahoe Community College last month, it did attract over 12,500 people. A very successful event. The reason I bring that up is that the car show, that the tickets that the over 12,000 folks paid for, it does go toward Colorado cerebral palsy. So that was a very successful event. My appreciation goes to the event organizers, and in particular, Mr. Michael Cianero, for making the show a great success while helping out Colorado cerebral palsy. As a community, well, we need to continue our support to Arapahoe Community College. Not only do they provide quality education, they are a good community neighbor, and I sure like having them around. At the CML conference, and it was a good conference, one of the things I went to was on increasing youth involvement into government, and then what it was to some degree, the students will learn about our federal government, and if there's time, they'll learn about state government and how it operates, but often it doesn't leave a lot of time or any time for local government, and so that's something that we can, we up here can try to be involved with, just showing up and trying to share some of our experiences up here. Also, one of the other seminars that I attended, and as well as Mr. Beckman was there, was one on fund management in government. It was very good, and I'm wondering if something like that we could bring in, Mr. Beckman and I talked about it, if we could bring in that organization to come in and discuss the fund management in government. I think it would be good for not only us, but also for just the public out there to see a little bit about how things operate. It doesn't necessarily operate like we would run our businesses and things like that. So I thought that was very good. If you need information on that, I'll be glad to pass that on. Let's see. I have a couple more items here. And the reason I'm bringing these up is, these are, I'm going to ask Mr. Penny a couple questions, and the reason I'm asking them instead of emailing was so many people have asked about this. I thought it would just be good if maybe, if you don't have an answer for us now, maybe you could at some other time. A while back we did, as a council, we approved the wellness program, and maybe sometime down the road, you can give us an update on how that is going.
Absolutely.
Great, thank you. Also, a while back, many citizens had expressed their concern about the parking around our parks and over at Littleton High School football stadium during events with the traffic, parking. And I know you were going to, when you get an opportunity, you're going to follow up on that. Okay, so if you do that. That is it for me. Thanks.
Will do.
Phil?
Okay. During the CML conference, things didn't stop happening locally. The South Metro Denver Chamber had their annual real estate breakfast, and someone who's been before us was also on the panel that did the presentation, Harold Smettles of Sterling Ranch, and there's been a court case. It seems like the project may actually get moving and breaking some ground. But it was interesting to hear the heat of real estate and what's happening, not just nationally, but certainly here in Colorado and the South Metro region. Did want to mention, in addition to what Councilmember Cole said about Hector Picard, amazing guy, because here's a double amputee that competes with non-challenged individuals in Ironman races, and he's completed 3 Ironman, so that was pretty good. And, on June 15th, Kathy, my wife, and I attended the TEDx Mile High event. Significance of that and in connection was a young man by the name of Easton LaChapelle made a presentation. Easton's from Mancos, Colorado, and he's a 17-year-old that is actually designing prosthetics and working with robotics. And after we had a chance to meet Hector yesterday, put him in contact with Hector, because what he's really trying to do is find affordable ways to provide prosthetics, which is pretty heartwarming. And if you can imagine baby Jameson, who's just about 1 year old now, a little over 1, he's going to have to go through a number of prosthetics as he grows. And the reason why I know some of that, I know how many pairs of shoes I had to buy for my kids as they grew over the years. So also at the TEDx Mile High, want to see if we can bring someone in and talk with folks. A guy by the name of Adam Brock, who heads up the Grow House and deals with indoor farming and reclamation of some greenhouses that have been there. And it's been an amazing project up in Denver. And then also at the TEDx Mile High, it was very interesting, and I thought it was kind of just something to share here. Organization called Public Coffee. And you provide your donation for the coffee, but they serve it in 2 small cups connected. And you have to have a partner to actually engage in drinking the coffee. And while you're dealing with the coffee, there's a discussion guide that is provided. This one happens to be prompt 34, which is, what do you believe are the great implications and possibilities of enhanced computer vision? And as folks are dealing with that, kind of an interesting organization. They work off of donations and what folks are willing to give. So that was there. And then at the Health South grand opening and Health South Rehabilitation Center of Denver, also known as Health South Rehabilitation Center of Littleton, is about 120 jobs of employment. They now have about 30 beds occupied as of yesterday, and It's a very interesting facility because of the way they deal with rehabilitation and the connection that Hector has with Health South is he actually went through the Health South Rehabilitation Center in Florida. And the one that they opened here in Littleton is their 103rd hospital, and they're getting it down pretty well. And for those of you that are involved in health care, it's an amazing facility from the perspective that it's paperless, and so which is kind of exciting. Thank you.
Bruce?
I've got a question for the city manager. Can you tell us how Cornerstone Park is progressing as far as July 4th, if there's any talk of the fireworks and what the decisions were?
We are moving forward with it.
Okay.
So it's as scheduled, and I believe we've got it on the website, and we've sent it out to let people know that we're a go.
Okay, so we are a go for the 4th of July at Cornerstone Park. For those of you that may not know, this is a major fireworks demonstration here on the south side of the metro area. It's a day-long worth of events, and it's a great opportunity to see fireworks, and it sounds like some municipalities aren't going to be able to do them, so here's a chance to still see fireworks in Littleton. I want to talk about a couple things that sort of draw together, and they happen to be about the fire service. I just want to take a moment to recognize that the tragedy of the loss of a hotshot crew in Arizona. This is an incredibly difficult situation that these hotshot crews are placed into, and if you have any Colorado history, you'll know about 20 years ago we lost a crew on Storm King Mountain outside of Glenwood Springs. This comes very close to us in Colorado. In fact, we have members of Littleton Fire Rescue who are part of the wildland fire response in the state, and some of the training that they attend is training with folks that manage these kinds of events. Personally, just a little bit of knowledge that I have on this type of thing. On June 10th, I was having dinner with a commissioner in El Paso County, and we were talking about it's the 1-year anniversary of the fire that they had down there. And the very next day, she called us up, and she was literally on television with a second fire down there. This wildfire problem in Colorado is significant. The drought's very significant. And I just take a moment to recognize not only the loss of the hotshot crew, but the tremendous work that's being done throughout Colorado to try to work this. And it even does involve folks in our city. And along those lines, on June 15th at the fire muster at ACC, tremendous turnout of people that like fire equipment, like seeing all those things, and it's fun to see that, but there's also a very serious side to that job. So thank you to the fire folks, Littleton personnel, Littleton Police, and the ACC and Ralph Schomp for putting on that awareness for our community about fire. I want to amplify what Jim talked about, the CML class that I also attended on reinvesting in the infrastructure, and I've talked with the city manager about it a little bit. During the budget session last year, we touched on it, but we didn't actually move too far forward on it because of the budget situation. The point of that informational class at CML was that if you have a system to analyze your lane miles within your city, you'll know the point at which you're best going to invest money in rebuilding them and the point at which you go beyond that. And with the resources limited, it makes a great sense. So reflecting, Jim, what you said, if we can maybe have it at a study session, talk about a little bit more detail before it shows up at the budget, because this is a serious problem for us in Littleton, as it was for the cities that presented. And finally, I had also attended the class that Jim attended on talking about rebuilding and revitalizing your downtown. Great ideas there, and it might make sense for us just to rethink the whole downtown in some process somehow over the near and distant future, because there are folks that are trying different kinds of things, and some of them are working really well, and they might actually work in Littleton, as Jim suggested. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thanks. Bruce?
I apologize. I was remiss. I mentioned I had gone to the fire partner meeting, but Councilmember Beckman sat in on that as well, and appreciated him joining in. So thank you.
Okay. Okay, this is the opportunity now for guest citizens, citizen appearances. We have no guest citizens at this point and no scheduled public presentations, so this is an opportunity for unscheduled public appearances. This is a chance for any citizen to express opinions, ask questions regarding city services, council policies, or other matters of community concern that are not part of the scheduled agenda. Generally, an immediate response shouldn't be expected, and typically issues are referred to the city staff for follow-up information or research and reported back to the council and the individual that initiated the comment or inquiry. And we'll just remind again that 11A is a first reading on the Broadstone. It is not a public hearing. It is will be used to set the second reading public hearing. So we do have 3 public hearings this evening, 8A, 8B, 8C. If you are here to speak on any of those, I ask that you please speak during those public hearings. If you would like to speak on another issue, please raise your hand. Pam, you have 4 minutes, and please give us your name and address.
Hello, my name is Pam Chadbourne. I live at 5402 South Nevada Street, downtown, and I'm going to follow up on 2 things that the council members mentioned tonight. So what I'd like to find out is, online, where is a source that talks about some of the ideas for downtowns that we should consider? I'd like a chance to evaluate whether I think they're good or not. And so where online can I see what was presented at CML for downtown? Second, I think it's awful to consider closing the right-hand turn off of Main onto Prince. Obviously, I live right down there. I think it would affect businesses along there. It would certainly affect transit time across Littleton. And besides pedestrian experience, you've got to acknowledge that getting into and out of downtown has to be easy. If it's not, you're going to hurt us. So I object to that. The third thing is that last week I asked the Planning Commission to tell us why Scott Ranville was released from his service on Planning Board. And the council voted on that, and I understand that you can. I understand it's your authority. But I want to know your criteria. When people serve as volunteers without pay and are dismissed, I think it's in the public interest for us to understand why you took that action. So those are my 3 issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. Anyone else?
I actually wasn't planning on speaking tonight, but I...
Name
and
address.
Ben Burkett, 5730 South Bemis Street. So anyways, to continue. A couple of items that you all said that just piqued my interest. Phil, I'm sorry, I have to correct you. Being from Four Corners area, it's Mancos, not Mancos. Jerry, I liked what you said about getting individuals involved, younger individuals with the city, local, county.
You're older than the guys I was thinking of, though.
No, that's fair, but...
You're an old guy.
I took it to heart because I personally have not been involved in city affairs until recently, primarily because of 11A tonight. Even though my father worked for City of Cortez. But it brought up something I watched the other evening on TEDx as well, online. And there was something about how to fight apathy. And I would recommend each of you actually to take a look at it and read it, or watch it. It's only, 15 minutes. And it's really about getting people involved in the local community. And some of it, you may agree, disagree, doesn't matter. But there are some new ways of looking at how we even approach and give information out there. I love their example. They used Toronto. I'm going to leave it at that. You can watch that. Councilmember Taylor, I like the idea some ideas you proposed, and I think you're right. We probably should consider what can we do to improve downtown, whatever they are. Let's be innovative. I echo some concerns around that Prince Street, the feasibility of it, but I assume that's where studying and we'll come up with that. But my own thought was in looking around other cities around the world, Stockholm, Copenhagen, they've actually taken main thoroughfares and closed them off to traffic and made them purely pedestrian. They've then had an outpouring of outdoor eating and other, services or whatnot. And I think we have some opportunities on some of those side streets that may not be through streets. So I just wanted to add my 2 cents on that and add part more to the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Was that City of Cortez, you said,
Yes,
their website to go to?
I'm sure it's ciacortez.org. I don't.
How to fight the apathy? It was Cortez, all right?
Yeah, that's where I'm from, yeah.
No, it's not.
No,
Oh, you're talking about the TEDx?
Yes.
What I would do is, I get it through Netflix,
TED.com.
TED.com, even YouTube it. And I would probably just YouTube Fighting Apathy.
Cool.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Leah Burkhead, 5730 South Bemis Street. Surprised to be here tonight. Not going to talk about Broadstone, but talk about expediting the process. Just 1 week ago, Planning Board recommended denial of the project. Because I live right across the street, I've been trying to pay a lot of attention to the dates, and I don't remember this July 2nd date ever having been discussed. So I went online to look at the meeting minutes, and as you know, there were no meeting minutes for the last 7-8 weeks. They've all been approved tonight. But also tried looking at the old agendas and tried to pinpoint when this July 2nd date was even determined. And some of the links were linking only to tonight's agenda, and some of the draft minutes were linking to other ordinances that are on the table for tonight. So I think the website needs to be looked at. The information that's out there is incorrect, and a lack of correct information makes it hard for citizens to inform themselves. Also, while trying to do my homework about these dates and some of your past discussions, I've been trying to even understand what the point of a first reading without a hearing is. And according to your website, if I can get the camera up here, just want to show you what's on your website. Like, you aren't even going to be able to see it.
Put it down in the center.
There you go.
Pretty tiny, but I'll just read it. It's this bit that I have highlighted here. It says, all ordinances have a first and second reading. On first reading, the ordinance is read by title. City Council may ask questions of the staff. The mayor then opens the public hearing, and citizens who have signed a call to speak. Goes on, blah, blah, blah. If adopted, it is scheduled for a second reading. So it sounds to me, based on reading this, that there should be a hearing tonight. Trying to think maybe it depends on the type of ordinance. I started digging into the Sterling codifiers a little bit more, and I didn't get an answer to my question about whether a hearing is required or not. But I did find some interesting information about the review procedures for rezoning applications. So since the council review procedure, I assume the first reading of an ordinance begins your review procedure. Materials to be transmitted. The planning division shall transmit the following materials to council. Rezoning application, check. Proposed rezoning ordinance, check. Planning board resolution, burn. Minutes of planning board meeting, burn. Staff report, check. So my question is, without all of these documents being forwarded to you, is it appropriate to begin your review of this ordinance tonight? Finally, I want to ask about the meaning of a quasi-judicial hearing. I did my research there too. And if you're going to be hearing a staff report tonight, I'm confused how that puts you in a quasi-judicial role without hearing the opposite side of the story. The staff report recommends approval of the project, and if you're listening to that without hearing the other side of the story, I don't know how your quasi-judicial role is really affected. It seems to me that voting on a first reading without a public hearing is not giving the right of directly impacted parties to participate. Due process is critical in quasi-judicial hearing. So I'd love to hear how it is appropriate to have this first reading tonight without a hearing, and why does your website say that there should be a hearing?
Thank you. And just as a clarification, the first reading for this zoning is not a hearing. It's a first reading to set the public hearing, which will be the date. We're looking at an August 6th date. So we're not hearing from the staff, we're not hearing from the applicant, we're not hearing from anyone this evening.
So that packet that was up at the front is just for purpose of the August 6th
You
hearing.
guys received the exact same packet that the council receives, and we received the entire packet from Broadstone. We didn't have the planning minutes in there because they hadn't been finalized, put together, approved. Once that's completed, then we'll have those. But we actually, we have it a month ahead of the hearing, so we have a good amount of time. And I can't recall on the packet what date it was that you intended to get the planning minutes in it. I think it was within a week or so.
The next meeting that
we'll
will be approved, but I assume the year review process began on the first reading of the ordinance, and I'm not certain what the point of this first reading is if there's no information presented. You're merely just voting on whether or not to have the hearing?
We move it to a second to the public hearing. It's legislative. It's the proper way. Thank you.
It's legislative or it's quasi-judicial?
It's a quasi-judicial hearing, but our rules are legislative, and that's the appropriate way to do it. So, okay, thank you.
I'll have plenty to say at the hearing. Thanks.
Anyone else?
Mayor, I'd just add, Leah, I'd be happy to talk to you offline about it as well.
Okay, seeing no one else, we'll go ahead to move to consent agenda. As we determined earlier, we have pulled 7A. So moving to 7B, this is a motion to formally name Creekside Experience. We brought this to council regarding the Murray property, where we have determined a name of Creekside Experience, and looking for council's approval on that this evening so that we can forward the recommendation to the South Suburban Board of Directors for their consideration. Both boards need to approve it. Okay, 7C, this is a resolution authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with the Arapahoe County Sheriff's Office for the use of the Arapahoe County Sheriff's Driver Training Facility. 7D, this is a resolution authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Lakewood to use the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office and Lakewood Police Department's combined regional academy for recruit police officer training. 7E, this is a motion to approve the engagement of an auditor for the 2013 fiscal year. And per the city charter, section 33, the council selects a certified public accountant to conduct an annual audit, and the same accountants shall not serve more than 5 consecutive years. And for the last 5 years, Reuben Brown LLP has conducted the audit, so now it's time to make a change. We issued an RFP for a new firm, and Council Members Beckman and Councilmember Taylor assisted staff in interviewing 3 highly qualified firms. Anton Collins Mitchell is the firm that is now being recommended by Councilmembers Beckman and Taylor to conduct the city's annual audit beginning in 2013. And as an additional negotiated service at no additional cost, ACM will prepare a Beyond the Numbers report, which will include financial metrics to provide increased analysis. So,
I'd like to pull that.
okay, that's been pulled. 7F is a resolution authorizing a memorandum of understanding between the State of Colorado, the Governor's Office of Information and Technology, Communication Services, and the City of Littleton to benefit from state-supported upgrades of the public safety statewide digital trunked radio system software.
Madam Chairman, I move that we approve consent agenda items 7B, 7C, 7D, and 7F.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve consent. Ready to vote?
The vote is 7 in favor. The motion carries.
Okay, we had 7E pulled by Councilmember Valdez.
Yeah, just a simple question on this one. Well, as I was reviewing the proposal and the agreement, there's about a 3% increase every year. Was that something that was negotiable, that we negotiated? Who negotiated the contract?
Doug?
Doug Farmer, Finance Director. Staff reviewed the technical proposals from all 10 firms, and cost was not part of that decision-making to move the top 3 firms forward for interview. And so the cost proposal was actually forwarded from the audit firms themselves, and once we forwarded it to the interview panel, Council Members Beckman and Taylor had a chance to look at all the cost proposals. But no, we did not negotiate the price, but it was part of the decision-making. But above all, the technical proposal and also the interviews were the highest priority made by council and staff.
So as far as all the cost of all of the 3 bidders, where did this one rank?
In other words, this was not the lowest cost firm. This was the most qualified, according to staff and the council members.
And this one ranked where?
It was toward the bottom. It was middle toward the bottom of the cost proposals. But I can give you the details if you'd like that. What we wanted to try to do was not just engage with the lowest priced audit firm. We wanted to get the highest qualified, and so
Understand.
that's why the cost proposal really was.
Again, on the 3%, is that something we've already agreed to at this point?
I'd have to probably defer to Randy Watkins, the audit firm partner. He's here tonight. He could probably answer that question. But yes, that was part of the proposal. If we can renegotiate, we probably want to talk to Randy about that possibility.
Cool.
Good evening. I'm Randy Watkins, partner with Anton Collins Mitchell. Generally, we do build a slight increase to account for adjustments for staff salaries, but our fee is a not-to-exceed fee. So if we are able to finish the audit in fewer hours and less cost, we'll only bill for the hours and costs that we incur. But that is the purpose of the slight increase year over year.
I guess what I'm thinking on with this, and I realize the 3%, and I'm thinking you guys probably did look at it. I realize it's not much, but you as an audit firm coming in that first year, that's where I think most of your work is going to be done, the learning curve and all that stuff. But over the next 4 years, not that it's easy, but it's not as complex because you've sort of learned our system. I would rather that 3% not be included.
True, but as you stated, we do incur significantly more cost in the first year, and we don't recover that until the 3rd year before we're achieving the level of profitability.
One more time, please.
We don't typically achieve the level of profitability that we're looking for until about the 3rd year because of the significant investment that we make. I believe it's also in the proposal the amount of time that we're willing to absorb in the first year as an investment in a long-term relationship, which I think should also be factored into that consideration.
Thank you, Randy.
Absolutely.
Bruce?
Doug, I was just going to ask, I thought I saw in there that the fee structure, though, was quite a bit less than we're paying this year to Reuben Brown. Was that inaccurate? Did I see that, or am I thinking of something else?
No, you're absolutely right. For the 2012 audit, which we would pay for in 2013, we're paying Reuben Brown a contracted amount of $58,000. And the first year of the audit for next year would be $45,000 to ACM.
Okay, thank you.
Significant savings.
Okay. Jerry, you want to make a motion?
No.
Somebody need a motion?
I will.
Jim?
I move to approve the engagement of an auditor for the 2013 fiscal year audit as outlined in our attachment E.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve Anton Collins Mitchell as our auditor. Ready to vote?
The vote is 7 in favor. The motion carries.
Okay, 8A. And this is an ordinance on second reading and a public hearing. City Attorney?
Madam Mayor, members of council, this is ordinance number 8, an ordinance of the City of Littleton, Colorado, approving renewal of a lease of land from the United States Department of the Army for public park and recreational purposes.
Okay, Charlie?
Good evening, Council. I'm Charlie Boston, Inspector of Public Works for the city. Present to you tonight an ordinance that would allow us to continue to lease land at the south end of South Platte Park for a parking lot and driveway that's been there for several years. This will be the second time we've leased it for a period of 10 years. As you notice in the communication and the lease, the federal government, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, is asking us to do it on one-year leases for 10 years. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to respond.
Any questions, Council? Okay, thank you, Charlie. Okay, this is a public hearing. Anybody would like to come down and address council on this issue, you're welcome to do so. Okay, so seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing.
In a motion?
And I need a motion.
Madam Chair, go on.
Bruce?
Okay. I move the public hearing be closed and the ordinance approving the lease renewal with the United States Department of the Army for continued use of the spillway area of the Chatfield Lake Project property for public park and recreation uses be approved.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Ready to vote?
The vote is 7 in favor. The motion carries.
Okay. Item 8B, this is also an ordinance on second reading and public hearing. City Attorney.
This is an ordinance of the City of Littleton, Colorado, granting permanent utility easement to Public Service Company of Colorado at the Littleton Englewood Wastewater Treatment Plant.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor Brickman, Council. Thank you for having me. My name is Chong Wu. I'm the engineering manager at the Littleton Englewood Wastewater Treatment Plant. I'm here to recommend approval of a grant of easement to Public Service Company of Colorado for the installation and maintenance of an underground gas line. The gas line is for our building space project and will provide service for a new modular building within the plant site. The gas line will provide service to the building HVAC units. And since the Littleton Englewood plant is jointly owned by both cities, we are recommending approval from both city councils. The easement is 10 feet wide by approximately 500 feet in length. At this point, I can either provide a brief background into the building space project or answer any specific questions that you may have.
Let's check with some questions. Bruce?
Thank you. There was an inquiry, citizen inquiry about building expansion, and my understanding from talking with City Manager Penny is that this gas line is going to the temporary structures, the trailers, will ultimately provide gas to the trailers that are now on electric heat, and that ultimately we're talking about purchasing the trailers. But there's no major expansion of office space or anything planned.
No, a building expansion wouldn't be our preferred option. However, that has a very high capital investment. So
it was never approved?
No. The recommended option was for a modular building, as that provided a lower cost.
Okay, but then the expectation is we're going to buy these trailers for $354,000 or some such thing.
Yeah, the number is $354,640.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
So this is a public hearing. We'll go ahead and open the public hearing. If anybody would like to come down and speak on this issue, please do so. Okay, seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing, and I need a motion.
Go for it, Phil.
Okay. I move that the ordinance approving the easement to Public Service Company of Colorado at the Littleton Englewood Wastewater Treatment Plant for the installation of a natural gas line be approved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Voting. Peggy?
The vote is 7 in favor. The motion carries.
Okay. 8C, this is also an ordinance on second reading and public hearing. City Attorney.
Madam Mayor, members of council, this is an ordinance of the City of Littleton, Colorado, approving environmental covenants for a portion of the land known as Reynolds Landing and Super Chi open space.
Charlie?
Council, this one's a little more complicated than what I previously presented. At one time, we owned 22 acres of what was called the Saperchi, or the Central Construction Property, on the east side of the river at the end of Briarwood Avenue. This would also be the location just west of the recently approved Breckenridge Brewery site, as well as west of the Meadowwood Village Trailer Park, mobile home park. The city sold 10 acres on the north side of that to South Suburban a number of years ago, and they developed Reynolds Landing Park. The city kept the remaining 12 acres. Part of that is leased to the original homeowner, Barbara Saperchi. In the negotiations to acquire the property, it was determined that some of the land was contaminated. There was underground contamination due to leaking storage tanks and other debris that had been spilled on the property. We discounted the price of the property when we bought it to account for the contamination cleanup by the city. We started that cleanup and we went into a phase 2 remediation. It was determined that this would take some time, as much as 20 years from now, and we've owned the property for an existing 10 years. The environmental engineer that we use, Stantec Company, has indicated that there is a way to stop the monitoring and the remediation of the environmental hazard, and that is by having an environmental covenant placed on the affected property, as shown on the map in your packets. Turns out the city owns part of the property where this environmental covenant would occur, and South Suburban owns the rest of it. If each of those two property owners places an environmental covenant on their part of the property, then the city can stop the environmental monitoring that is going on at a cost savings of $20,000 a year. Over a period of 20 years, that would, of course, be $400,000. South Suburban has approved their environmental covenant. We are proposing to City Council now that you place an environmental covenant on the city's portion of the property. This covenant would protect this land from any future construction that could occur on this small section, and it is not a large parcel of land. It's also at a location where it would be highly unlikely that any development could occur. The covenant also states that if either city or the district does any work within the covenant area, they need to notify the other party. That protects both parties in the instance they do want to go in and build a driveway or do some planting or some other improvement other than construction of a building. Once this covenant is approved by the City Council, it's a very simple process for us to stop spending $20,000. We just have to record these covenants at the county assessor, county records office, and then we're done. With that information, Council, I'll be glad to address any questions. We think this is a logical step for us to go through in order to apply this to the ground and save us a lot of money and continued monitoring.
Bill?
Charlie, now that I'm against saving money on the monitoring side, is it planned that the remediation would continue to at least recover the land and stop them? I understand stopping the monitoring saves us some cost, but would the remediation continue so that at some point in time this property might be considered safe?
Councilman Cernatic, no. The answer is no. We would not do any further remediation. The environmental engineer does not feel they can accomplish anything further than what has already been done, and the only thing they could do is sit and wait for 20 years and continue the monitoring process. They do not believe there's any further action that they could take that would reduce the hazards that are in the ground and the groundwater.
So other than time, there's no other path?
That's correct.
Bruce?
Charlie, just in that world of unintended consequences, does this mean that simple things like putting a fence or a sidewalk or a pathway would not be allowed on that property at all, or only with the joint permission?
Only with the joint permission of each of the two property owners. You can still do a pathway, you can plant a tree, you could put a fence, but when you do a construction that might have a caisson or foundation that goes deeper into the ground and excavates, then we could probably stop it if South Suburban wanted to do it on their side or if we wanted to do it. But there are some surface improvements that can be made to the ground.
Okay, thank you.
Bruce?
The map is pretty clear, but I assume the original work determined conclusively that this is the only area affected, as in there's no contamination that's going to bleed into the Breckenridge area?
That's correct.
Or Meadowood, for that matter, obviously?
Yes, that is correct.
That's confirmed?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Charlie, just to confirm, this is, in terms of Littleton's label of the property, it's open space.
That is correct.
And we can't build on open space.
At this time, there are no plans to do anything on the property that council has reviewed.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Charlie. So this is a public hearing. I will open the public hearing. And we have a roster. We had Leah Burkett signed her name to it. Do you favor the ordinance? No. Do you wish to speak? No. Does anybody else want to weigh in on this? Pam?
I'm Pam Chadbourne. I live at 5402 South Nevada Street, Crestline, in Nevada, in District 1. This is a process comment and problem, I think. The contaminant isn't named in a statement that there's no further remediation. I appreciate the question, by the way, that we can do, to me, is not adequate to make this decision. I'd like to know what the contaminant is, what the possible remediations might be, and their possible effectiveness. In engineering, there's always some change. It may have been decided to be not worth it, but I think the public needs to know that. And I think the decision warrants that as well. Also, without monitoring, trust but verify is fundamental. You don't know what's going on, so you can't handle what might be happening. So monitoring, I think, is important. Saving $20,000 a year is an erroneous statement of what that is if there is contamination. And my concern is the river. It's good to know that a couple of human contiguous properties are not contaminated, but what about the river and the wildlife? So I think more information should be made, should be discussed publicly before this is approved. Thanks.
Thank you. So point of clarification that in the council communication, the contaminants are named.
Okay. And what about the remediations that are possible?
Again, it's the staff report says the mitigation of the contaminated soil was completed, but then I think the city has retained an environmental engineer to monitor contamination of the site and file the necessary paperwork. So presumably the soil was, I assume mitigation means the soil was extracted and taken to an appropriate monitoring site where asbestos and all these other types of things are kept. And in theory, some element of the remaining benzene, toluene, ethylbenzene, and xylene might have spread down a little bit further, and so it's a matter of trying to, just keep an eye on that. But if they remediated the soil, what else could they do, Charlie?
Excavation.
Huh? I mean, what other alternatives are viable? How much of the stuff remaining do they think is in the soil?
The environmental engineer says they could continue to monitor it for 20 years to see if it gets to a point that is below the standards that is required. We're at the standard now. The only question is, could you get it down to literally zero? And they said no.
So they're saying it's at a threshold not sure I understand that.
It's at a point, the contamination of the ground is at a point where it meets the minimum requirement, but there is still some in the ground. And the only thing you can do is continue to monitor for approximately 20 years to see if it literally dissipates to zero.
So a question would be, when they remediated the site, how was it that they weren't able to get all of it? Is it because it disperses and there's just...
I can't answer that question, Council. I don't know the answer to that one.
This may help, Charlie. In the environmental covenant, it does state, whereas the property has been remediated and the groundwater has been monitored to ensure that the residual BTEX and MTBE concentrations are not harmful, are below regulated levels, or should not pose a risk to human health or the environment, and whereas such groundwater monitoring is no longer necessary, but excavation on the property could pose a human risk to human health or the environment. So,
And one other thing, Council, we don't believe that there was any evidence that any of this contamination entered the river. None.
Thank you.
Okay. Still have a public hearing on. Anybody else want to come down? Okay. Seeing Leah.
I just want to ask a couple of questions. If it's in the groundwater, could it not get to the river? The river is not very far away from Reynolds Landing. And secondly, could we reach some kind of compromise where we were checking at least periodically instead of never checking at all again? That would be more agreeable, I would think.
Thank you. Okay. Anybody else? Okay, seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing. And I need a motion.
Before we do that, can Charlie respond to that question? I mean, yes, no.
It's also in the environmental covenant, the answer.
Okay, not everybody has that. And so since the question was asked on the record, I thought maybe it would be good to have an oral response.
The question about the groundwater and possible contamination in the river because it's so close, the environmental engineer has indicated to us that there was no influx of this contamination into the river.
No, that was not the question I meant, because you already made that clear. Any chance, the request was maybe a periodic, I don't know if she's thinking every 5 years, 10 years, to check occasionally, to monitor, whatever. And
yes, that can be done. It's not required and it's not necessary, but it can be done. It's incredibly expensive to have the company come out and do that. And again, as I mentioned, the contamination level is very low, but the answer to the question is yes, we could have the consulting engineer come back out whenever we want and go through the process of determining the level of toxicity.
But since we're not planning to let anything happen there, that would be a reason to say we're at a level that we don't really need to do that.
Right.
If we had some earthquake or whatever, then we're in big trouble anyway. But if some major insult occurred to the property,
if you decided at some point you wanted to sell the land with approval of the vote of the people, and South Suburban wanted to sell theirs, and there would be construction occurring on the property, then we would have to come back out and reassess the position.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, we still have a public hearing. So,
Can we have further discussion after it's...
Yes. So, I just need a motion to close the public hearing and get a motion on the table.
I move the public hearing be closed and the ordinance adopting environmental covenants on the Saperchi property be approved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion. Bruce.
I guess my question is directed to Charlie, but it's a comment also. The concern that I have is that we're basically moving away from any other further attention to this area of land for some period of time because it's kind of off our radar screen by this covenant. And I'm not sure that that's responsible behavior for a public entity alongside the river. So what would be a way in which we would keep this on our radar screen and be able to set a model in the community for how we're looking at something that has been contaminated and the potential is unknown? Tough question, Charlie, but I think, I'm very concerned about walking away from it and having it no longer a matter of concern when beneath the surface it could be a matter of concern.
I understand your point. I'm not sure how to address it.
And my assumption is that by keeping it as it was, we would continue to monitor it. So that's the alternative seems to be all or nothing. I'm trying to find something
if I may jump in, I think one of the ways we could do it, if there was really desire by the council to do it in 5 years or 7 years or 10, pick the number, and maybe we come back to you, is just to set up a contract, continue the contract with the engineer to come back in 5 or 7 years, whatever that desire is. And I would, rather than us picking a time, I would suggest that we talk to the environmental engineer and get their recommendation on, if we were going to do this, when to come back, because it is not an all or nothing to the question that Council Member Cole was asking. We could do it every 3 years if you so choose. It's really how do you remember on this particular thing with everything going on. And I'd suggest the way that we do it is just enter into the contract and have it set that they're going to come back in 3 or 5 years, and the burden's on them to do so, and then they get paid for that. So if there's a desire to do this, why don't you just direct staff to negotiate the appropriate timing and make sure that it gets done.
Can I just follow up real quick on that?
Yeah, I'm done with my questions.
Okay. Just follow up to that. Since the engineers, Charlie, since the engineers already stated that the monitoring has indicated that the concentrations are not harmful to either human or environment, and it's been mitigated to the point where the contaminant has been removed.
Yes.
The tanks and stuff are gone, so there's no additional contaminant being put into the area.
That's absolutely correct.
What would we expect to find in 3 or 4 years? Would we expect to see levels rising? What would the expectation be?
Well, we've encountered this in previous locations that we're continuing to monitor, and we have not seen an increase in levels. We actually see decrease, but the question is, how far down do you go in the levels before you hit the minimum requirement and to get to zero? And we aren't required to get to zero. And there's a level there that we say we've gotten to that point that we don't have to do anymore, and it would just take a matter of time for it to go away to zero. What that time is, they're estimating 20 years, but it could be longer. And as a result, though we have not seen any increase in the levels such as you described, Mayor, and we have done this at other locations, we have not seen anything increase. Now, there will be development occurring upstream of this property, and they will have to do environmental cleanup on their own land so that it doesn't filter downstream. And we are downstream from Breckenridge Brewery and Meadowwood Village as well.
Okay, thanks. You might just stay there. Jerry?
Charlie. So in the covenant, it does say that whereas such groundwater monitoring is no longer necessary, but excavation of the property could pose a risk to human health or the environment. What are the damages that would be incurred? I mean, I don't know these chemicals or anything like that, but what risk is it to human as well as in the environment?
The only risk is if there is excavation that occurs.
Okay, let's say excavation did occur.
Oh, the level, again, is down to the minimum requirement, so I can't answer that question. I'm not an environmental engineer, and I'm not a biologist that could possibly tell you what the risk factor is to human health. I don't know the answer to that. I'm not sure anybody could answer that question.
Is the property going to be posted as no excavation then, or?
The environmental covenant that is recorded with the deed for this property establishes public notice that this covenant exists. There will not be a sign up on this small parcel saying no excavation, but because South Suburban is doing the same thing with us, and if any excavation occurs, we have to notify the other party, and this covenant is recorded with the county, nothing can be done by either property owner.
So if little Johnny comes along with his little shovel and digs a little hole and decides to have a dirt sandwich?
Nothing will happen. No, absolutely no concern.
So are we talking, pardon? How far down are we talking that these chemicals are?
I don't know the answer, but I would say no, at least 8 feet before you start to hit anything.
Okay, cool, thanks.
That's why I say that a fence, for example, or a sidewalk could be put on the property without excavating to the level that the problem exists.
Thank you.
Jim?
I believe in Glenn's department there would be maps kept of this site, and he can flag those maps so that if anything comes about in the future, the city council will know and South Suburban Board will know that something is happening there and can raise the alarm.
Absolutely correct.
And the second thing is, in response to Michael's comments a while ago, that's a budgetary item, and it can be, people got tickler files that say in 8 years or 12 years from now, let's take a look at this. That becomes a budgetary item for that time. I think it's inappropriate, and I don't believe it's even legal for us to set that we're going to do this in so many years in the future, because we can't dictate that budget for that council.
We do have the capability of doing that through our computer system, where a red flag pops up at a certain time point and says, you're supposed to do something right now on this property.
Just to make sure I'm clear on this, this parcel is open space, right? It's zone open space, it's an open space acquisition. Is that true?
That's correct.
So there's nothing that could theoretically go in there unless South Suburban wanted to put a shelter.
A shelter could not be built on this property because that would be considered a structure.
Right.
But a pathway, gravel or otherwise.
But you said that would be okay because that was just going to be a surface.
That's correct.
Kind of thing. But other than that, generally speaking, South Suburban would be really the only people who'd want to do anything there, and you've already got Reynolds Landing next door. And if it's open space, there's not going to be any other, it's open space is open space.
That's the theory we went through, the process we went through in order to present this to council. There was virtually little possibility that anything could be built, and if in the case the city decided to sell the property and let somebody build on it, this parcel is in a location where setback would probably prohibit any structure from being placed on it.
Which is fine, but realistically, you can't really sell open space, can you?
You have to take it to a vote.
Yeah,
as
okay.
a public vote.
Okay.
I'm just thinking as far out as possible.
Bill?
Charlie, in my reading of this, let me see if I've got it right. Okay. One, remediation has been done.
Yes.
And the groundwater has been monitored.
Yes.
Over a period of 10 years. And the only reason, or the continuation of 10 years allows for the gold seal to say, hey, you don't have to worry about anything. And what this essentially does is we trade the covenants for spending the time and the money observing it for the next 10 years, and that nothing's going to be done without taking a look at it in this space. But what we're trading essentially is the cost of monitoring it, which no other remediation at this point in time could be done unless you actually wanted to scrape the property to whatever level, which would cause all sorts of environmental issues at this point in time.
If I could add to that, this idea was generated from the environmental engineer who's making $20,000 a year off monitoring. And I say to him, let me make this straight. You're suggesting we impose this environmental covenant and I'm going to kill one of your projects that you're making money. The answer was yes. He says there is nothing more we can do to remediate this any further. and it's just strictly monitoring.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you, Charlie. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Council, any other discussion? I would just add, I can't remember the name of it, Charlie might remember the name, the effort out at Lockheed that Littleton was part of with the mitigation, the shooting and the missiles. It was quite a long effort. Littleton was one of the communities that participated in that very long, drawn-out mitigation process. And the same thing came then. The engineers came back and said, we've done all we can do. We can't do any more. And we can't, without causing there to be an additional risk. So it's much, it brought to mind, I sat on that board for 3 years, and so it brought that to mind that while it may seem a little bit counterintuitive, it actually probably happens frequently that they do all they can do, and you can't get every spec out. So, all right, Council, are you ready to vote? Yes vote approves this.
The vote is 7 in favor. The motion carries.
Okay. So, 11A. This.
9.
Pardon me?
General business.
9.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't go. I've got to go back to my agenda.
I'd ask for an item
Okay.
on general business.
Yes. Jim, do you want to?
Yes, I'd like to request that staff draw up a proposal for the voters in November, having to deal with amending Section 37 of the Charter and bring it back to Council on July 30th, and would ask for a special meeting on July 30th to consider all of the proposed amendments to the chart that we'll be putting before the voters. Doing that early, that if we run into a snag somewhere, we still have the August 6th date to make any corrections and can correct it at that time. Because August 6th is our drop-dead date.
20th is the drop dead.
Well, we could have a special meeting, I guess, after that.
So what date are you suggesting the special?
July 30th. I probably said August, but it's July 30th.
Okay.
The last Tuesday of the month.
Was that a motion, Jim?
I'll make that into a motion.
Okay, we need a second.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion. Michael, did you want to add something?
So Section 37, just looking at it, is voting.
37?
27?
27.
Okay.
Oops. Okay.
Thank you.
I can't read my own handwriting.
And what is that?
27 has to do with executive sessions, and I want to have a proposal to look at something different on executive sessions.
Jerry.
So this is just to go review the executive session or consider something or concerning executive sessions?
Yes.
And only that item?
Yes. As along with the other things has come that we've already decided on, that is going to the voters in November.
So on this executive session one, though, so this will be another selection that possibly on the ballot?
Yes, I want staff to draw up that, and we'll have a discussion about it on July 30th.
And your thought process, the reason for doing this, in your opinion?
I just think that we can look at something that outlines the way we currently operate, and that we have not deviated from that operation in a number of years. So as long as we're doing it, let's codify it and put it into law that is going to regulate all the future councils to have to abide by. But what we're doing now is what we've been doing for years. and I want that codified.
And you want what?
I want it to go into the charter.
Well, Peggy, I'm not sure why we need a motion on this. It would seem to me you would just be requesting staff and would be coming to us on an agenda to look at.
Well, I think you need the motion on the July 30th special meeting.
Right, so the issue would be to have a special session then, but we're not voting specifically on this.
Anything.
But we could.
But we could, right, yeah.
In the special meeting?
Yes. On the 30th.
Okay. Wendy, will you read back the motion?
Councilmember Taylor moved to put a proposal to the November on July 30th to deal and discuss with Section 27, which is executive sessions, and to set a special meeting for July 30th.
Okay. I think that motion is okay. It just moves the item to staff to work on something, bring it back on the 30th where we'll have a special meeting.
And that's because we did approve the items that we already got on the agenda.
Mhm.
That's why I thought that it was important that we
did
this as well.
We did. Okay, so we do have a motion and a second. Are you ready to vote? Phil?
The vote is 5 in favor with Councilmember Valdez and Councilmember Beckman voting no. The motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now 11A. 11A is an ordinance on first reading. City Attorney?
Mayor Brinkman, members of council, this is an ordinance of the City of Littleton, Colorado, approving the rezoning of property known as 2100 West Littleton Boulevard and 5759 South Bemis Street from B2 Community Business and R3 Single Family Residential, respectively, to PDR, Planned Development Residential.
Thank you. Need a motion?
I move that we set this for public meeting on August 6th for a public hearing on this issue.
You need a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to move the second reading public hearing to August 2nd. Bruce?
Michael, I guess I wanted to just follow on with what Ms. Burkett had said. I know we've sort of gone back and forth with the first reading public comment versus a second reading, and at one point we had double public hearing, and then protocol decided that wasn't exactly what we needed to do and wasn't what was required. Presently, I think it's second reading is the public hearing, but if it's on the website that it's first reading is...
So the short answer is the council has broken hearings, has taken ordinances and broken them into legislative ordinances and quasi-judicial. Let me back up. The charter requires that a public hearing be held on the second reading of an ordinance.
Okay.
And so the council has, the simple way of thinking about it, the council has said for legislative ordinances, some of the items you've had this evening, you are adding a public hearing at first reading. So all quasi-judicials follow the charter, which is only at second reading, which is what you have before you right now in the motion on the floor.
Okay.
Legislative action, the council through your legislative protocols have said we will have an additional public hearing at first reading.
Okay, and that's what's... The suggestion was that maybe that's not overtly as clear as it could be on the website. I don't know if you guys can look at that.
Yep, certainly heard that. But
Okay.
that is what I just described is what the council's both charter directive is to you as well as your own rules.
Okay, and the fact that we're doing the first reading on the second, a week after, planning board, their recommendation was forwarded to us for our meeting on the second specifically. How did that, what was the
That I
timeline?
can't speak to. You'd have to ask.
So Glenn? if you please. So just the question about the protocol in terms of the timeline between the planning board hearing it and council getting it on first reading, and then we've obviously, the motion is to do it on the 6th, and in part you're not going to be around for the, Councilmember Taylor's out, so we deferred so that we had a full council. But the timeline between planning board and council isn't it usually 2 weeks?
It's usually 2 weeks.
And the reason it's not in this case?
I'm not exactly sure why the month worked out that this was, well, actually, so it was 2 weeks ago that the planning board had their hearing on this, right?
Was it?
It was last week?
Last week.
When?
1 week ago, yesterday.
Okay. I'm not sure why it worked out this particular 2 months, that it only turned out to be 1 week.
Okay, but what's required? I mean, are we required to go 2 weeks?
No. We typically go right from planning board to the next available council meeting.
Next available, and that's stipulated somewhere, or we've got that indicated somewhere?
That's just our operating procedure.
That's correct. And we frequently don't get the planning board minutes until the second reading when we do the public hearing. That happens more often than not.
Okay.
Up and on other things.
Okay.
Thank you. Bruce?
Just looking at my calendar, that's the National Night Out. Return of National Night Out to the city as supported by the police department. In the past, council has altered their schedule so that they could participate in that.
An hour later, usually.
So there's a consideration.
We're going to have
Okay.
National Night in.
What date are we moving into again?
Are you suggesting we don't do it on the 6th?
I just think we need to, when we come up with that schedule, be aware that the tradition had been to delay the start of the meeting to facilitate National Night Out. And we're into this scheduling issue. I just want to make sure that got on the table.
The reason we didn't do it on the 16th is because Councilmember Taylor would not be here, so then it naturally would move to the 6th. There is also consideration of kind of a, not expedient, but in terms of the applicant, just respect for that amount of time. So I don't know, Michael, is that something? And the other thing is yes, it is National Night Out, and it would be great to participate. This may be a year where we make different decision about that.
And Councilmember Cole.
In terms of starting the meeting late.
I had discussed it, and I had forgotten about the conversation, but I do think that.
Hold on.
Going on here.
Michael.
I think due to how long the planning board meeting went, that delaying the start time, I mean, you guys have to decide whether you want to be here potentially until 1 or 2 a.m. Because of that. And my suggestion would be, based upon, the time with the presentation from staff, the applicant, and public comment period, that you start at 7 o'clock in order to accommodate the applicant and the process.
Peggy?
Why couldn't we schedule it for July 30th, since we now just have scheduled a special meeting for July 30th?
Assuming you meet the posting requirements, I don't know that there's a reason that you couldn't, other than it's been out there because I can't remember when Councilmember Taylor notified the council that he was going to be gone and made a motion to move it to August 6th, June 4th. Thank you. So it's just moving it around again, and what's the message to the public in terms of understanding when the public hearing is going to be?
The public has a pretty darn good network going on this, and the sign hasn't been posted yet, so.
Jim?
I was just going to say that most of the National Night Out events in my council district start at 5. There are a few of them that start at 5:30, and there's only one out of all the ones that are in my district that have started later than 5:30. So I have an opportunity to go by and say hello anyway.
Jerry?
So we're not having it on the 16th because there's only 6 of us up here? That's the sole reason?
Councilmember Taylor on June 4th had made a motion which was, I believe, passed unanimously to move it to August 6th because he was going to be out of town on the July 16th date.
So we did do that.
But I'd like to change it now to the 30th just to get to it. I know National Night Out is a big deal for a lot of neighborhoods in District 2. It definitely is.
Are you making a motion to amend?
I'm discussing it.
We're still in discussion.
Mayor, we can meet the posting requirements, so if council wishes to do it on June 30th, we can meet those posting
July
requirements.
30th.
I'm sorry, July 30th.
And there is a planning board meeting that they're going to be doing something else that's going to be attached to this, some communication of some sort. There's something, I can't remember what it was. Isn't that so, that the attorney was going to be helping craft some kind of
Correct.
statement?
And that would happen prior to as well.
So that would be like
Yes.
next week or something or other.
Okay. Any more discussion? Somebody want to make an amendment?
I will. I move that we move,
Amend the motion.
I amend the motion that we move the meeting for second reading to July 30, starting at our regular time.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to move a public hearing and second reading on Broadstone to July the 30th, 7 p.m. We have a discussion. Bruce?
Well, a couple questions. So if we're doing Jim's, the prior general business item on the ballot initiatives, but I guess logistically, what do? We're going to plan to meet in here, and then we'll just have both conversations occur at the same time?
Yeah, they
I mean, obviously, concurrently.
You're going to intermix Broadstone and marijuana, yes.
And what?
And marijuana.
Okay.
Yeah, I think what we'd probably do is put Broadstone on first due to the public's participation in that, and have the other agenda items at the end of it so people can make their public comment and all, but standard scheduling procedures.
That being the case, and given the likely length of the meeting, does it make sense to move the start to 6? Is a potential...
There'd be a big advantage in doing that, starting at 6.
I mean, we'd be a little fresher later. Maybe a friendly
I was up
amendment.
till 2 o'clock reading this stuff last night, so standing up till 2 o'clock isn't a big deal to me.
Is there,
Okay, whatever.
Fair point, well presented.
I guess we can't do that.
I'll move to amend it from 7 to 6. How about that?
Okay, so we have an amendment. Why don't
You don't have a second?
we, is there a second to go to 6 o'clock?
I will second that, but I think we can only vote on one amendment at a time. I believe
can't amend
need
the
to
Yeah, we
hear
have
the
an
first
amendment.
No, you're right.
And
You're
then
right.
we
You're
can
right.
have a second
Let's
amendment.
vote on the first.
I'll withdraw it then.
We're going to vote on the first amendment, which is to move it to July 30th. Ready to vote?
Vote of 7 in favor, the motion carries.
Okay.
All right, now I'll move to amend the...
Approved motion.
I'll make a motion to move the start date on the 30th of July from 7 p.m. to 6 p.m.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to move the July 30th meeting from 7 to 6. Bruce?
Oh, sorry. The motion is, or the vote is 5 in favor with Councilmember Valdez and Councilmember Beckman voting no. The motion carries.
Okay. So, just to summarize what we just did, the public hearing and second reading for Broadstone will be Tuesday, July 30th, 6 p.m.
And I have a suggestion. Do not put the hearing first so that we take care of the more minor issues and give people a chance to get home from work and to get here.
I think I think Michael and I are going to need to look at the calendar a little bit and see if there's some things we can do in order to maybe move a couple things around. I understand we want to put the Jim's motion on for the 30th in terms of the exec session, but we may be able to move some of the other things because I think we're looking at 18 points to consider on the marijuana ordinance, so we could be piling up. I don't mind working late, but at some point your thinking and clarity starts to lose. So just give us a chance to take a look at what we've got on the schedule, and we'll tweak those that we can move around a little bit, okay? Okay, 11B.
You need to have a motion on the amendment.
Oh, wait.
We need to vote on the main motion.
Oh.
Right.
The main motion.
And it's only 8:45.
Okay, the main motion is to, Jim, did you make the main motion?
Yes, was to have the public hearing on Broadstone on August 6th.
Now amended.
No.
Now amended. Okay.
On July 30th.
Right. Amended to July 30th, amended to start at 6.
What's the best way to state this, Ken?
I think
The motion is to hold second reading and the public hearing on July 30th, scheduled at 6 p.m.
Okay.
With the meeting scheduled at 6 p.m.
Right.
Okay. So do we need I need a second?
No, it was seconded.
We do have a second? Oh, yeah, we did. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Okay, cool.
Ready to vote?
Yep.
The vote is 7 in favor, the motion carries.
Okay. 11, Peggy?
Since the issue came up about National Night Out, do we want now to make a motion to start that meeting late?
Second.
Sounds like you really want to
That's way off the agenda. We didn't even make a amendment to the agenda to add that tonight. So do you want to do it after?
We can do it the next meeting.
Why don't we do it at the
Doesn't matter,
next
but
meeting?
Give us heads up, because if we're doing that, we need to get the word out to the folks that are coordinating.
Our next meeting is July 16th, so I think we have plenty of time, right?
Yeah, we'll put it on the agenda for you.
That's
Okay,
the next
thank you.
regular meeting.
Yes.
Because we do have a meeting on the 9th.
It's a special, or it's a study session, so, okay, we'll get it on the agenda for the 16th. Thanks, Peggy. All right. Okay, 11B is an ordinance on first reading approving a street name change. This is a public hearing also. City Attorney.
Mayor Brinkman, members of council, this is an ordinance of the City of Littleton, Colorado, amending Section 8-3-5 of the Littleton City Code, changing the name of South Rio Grande Street between Main Street and Alamo Avenue to South Biga Street.
Council, this was originally suggested to us by Councilman Taylor, that in honor of the Biga delegation coming to Littleton in mid-August, that the street on the east side of Biga Park, which is currently named Rio Grande Street on our maps, be changed to Biga Street. As indicated in the council communication, there are no businesses or residences that would be affected by this. No addresses would have to be changed. And there's a cost of about $100 to change the signs.
Bruce?
Charlie, when I Google Bega Park, it shows that it's in that 100 block of Rio Grande. And so I'm wondering that even though the signs and the streets and the businesses appear to not be affected, for those folks trying to find Bega Park right now, it goes to the, I think, 4950 through 5100, something like that, blocks of Rio Grande. We may never get that changed.
Sometimes Google is bigger than all of us.
But it would be the way that anybody trying to find that park would hit it on their NavTech in their car or on their computer, and that's the age we're in.
The sign for Biga Park is on Main Street.
Any other questions, comments? Okay.
Why Biga Street instead of like
Okay,
Parkway.
thank you, Bruce.
Each run north and,
Thank you, Bruce.
they run north and south, our streets.
That's fine.
Okay. This is a public hearing. For point of clarification, this is a first reading, but because it's legislative, we do have a public hearing on it. So if anybody would like to come down and make a comment, we do have a roster. Leah Burkett signed the roster. She is not in favor, and she does not wish to speak. Anybody else? Okay, seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing, and I need a motion.
Madam Chairman, I move that the ordinance changing the name South Rio Grande Street to South Bega Street from Main Street to Alamo Avenue be approved on first reading, and a public hearing be scheduled for July 16th, and at that time include a provision that an extra street sign be named to present to the Bega delegation when they're present in August.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Ready to vote?
The vote is 6 in favor, with Councilmember Cole voting no. The motion carries.
Okay. All right, seeing no other business this evening, we're adjourned.
All right.